Welcome to Muslims Doing Things, a podcast about extraordinary Muslims and their career journeys. Today we have Sidra Trajcevska. Sidra, what do you do?
Hey, Salam. I'm super excited to be here. I quit my corporate career to focus on entrepreneurship, and I own my own children's fashion clothing brand.
Which is Jasmine Marigold.
Jasmine Marigold. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at intros. I didn't even practice.
No, it's like a fan favorite. Like anytime I post, we have like this evil eye blanket that is like 100 years old for me at this point. Every time I post it, people are like, "Where did you get that?" And then I see it like a few weeks later on their story. So yes, you're the famed Jasmine and Marigold founder.
Well, you can't keep that in stock. I have to restock it. I'm always, but that's me. It's super fun. It's super fun.
And what people don't know is I've known you forever. I've known you for, probably 20 years now.
I want to say, it has to be because we probably met when we were teenagers in high school.
That's wild.
It's so crazy.
There's a backstory there, but we'll start from the beginning. Sidra, where were you born?
So I was born in Karachi, Pakistan, but we moved to the U.S. like when I was 14 months old. So pretty much born and raised in the suburbs of LA, although I was born in Pakistan.
Yeah. And growing up, you grew up, I kind of know this part of your story, but you grew up deeply immersed in a Pakistani cultural community.
Yep. Super immersed in it. Like like Nick we were just talking about this yesterday. It's like our foundation of our Muslim Pakistani heritage was like very firm and strong. So, because we had that surrounded us. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I used to go to camps with you guys, like with your mosque, whatever, like Big Bear camps or whatever. I don't know why I'm talking about your childhood as if it's mine. We'll shift the story back to you, but tell me a little bit about your upbringing, like, your road to Jasmine and Marigold.
It is funny because every time I listen to your podcast, I'm like, the questions Layla's going to ask me, she's going to know the answer to because we've known each other forever, which is like kind of funny. And so then I'm like, she doesn't know like the mom and like the grown up me, which will be fun when we like talk about that. But everything pre that, like because you saw me like in my youth. So we totally know all that stuff, which is super funny. I grew up in SoCal, like super involved with my masjid, super involved with like the community. You and I went to UC Irvine together, which was pretty awesome to have that community there too. And then it's actually funny because Jasmine and Marigold does very much come because of like that community involvement with my life. And when I was marrying my husband, who's a convert, everyone was like, don't marry him because your kids aren't going to be proud of your Pakistani identity. They're not going to be proud to be Muslim. They're going to struggle. And that community, which like, obviously I love that community so much, but that community could also have those kind of opinions. And you're just like, I don't believe that my kids are going to have that problem. And I'm always like, if someone tells me I can't do something, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it like really great. And so I thought, well, I'm going to be a good mom. I'm going to focus on having these good kids. But then during my maternity leave, I used to offer marketing for a long time, which is like, super fun. We can go into that a little bit later, but I did that for a long time. And I was on my maternity leave, and it was a little bit after Valentine's Day and right around Easter. And I actually had like a panic attack because I'm just like, we just passed Christmas. My daughter's born Christmas Eve, like Orthodox Christmas Eve. We passed Valentine's Day, we passed everything. And there were all these onesies that my daughter, whose family is like her that side of the family is Christian, to celebrate their holiday. And there was nothing for Eid. And I just thought, there is no way I'm going to win this. Like my kid is going to love Christmas. My kid's going to love Easter. She'll love Valentine's Day, and she's not going to love Eid. And I had like this panic. And I realized that nothing like that existed for my child to be proud of her identity. And also, again, it was also because my community was telling me that my kid's going to have problems. And that realization was very like jarring. It was just, I think my voice still shakes thinking about it because I still remember that time being a young mom and being so concerned that my child won't be proud of my identity.
It's wild because I remember that time. It was before I even had kids by a few years, and there truly was nothing. And like you look at now, which we're only 5, 6, 7 years past it, and there was a first wave of brands. I think you still exist. I don't think a lot of them survived. You still survived and kind of managed to push through. But I remember early on, you focused very heavily on the quality and the aesthetic. And so what was that like? You were like, I need to make a onesie. Here's the needle and thread. Did you get on AliExpress? Like, what was the moment from the panic attack to actually producing a business?
Oh my gosh. So I'd always been pretty creative, and what people don't know, and I thought this was kind of fun, and because I love you, like as like a person in my childhood, and I was like, this is fun because I haven't told anyone this. My family, we actually have fashion in our background. My grandma's little sister had her own clothing brand. She was a widow, so a single mom. She had her own children's clothing brand in Pakistan. And so, because of that, I grew up with my mom always buying fabric, like raw fabric to make all of our Pakistani clothes because we couldn't afford the ready-made stuff. So I'd go with her in the markets and she would be grilling the people on the fabric. Oh, that's silk. Where is it silk from? Oh, it's from China, but is it raw? Is it this? Oh, that's Georgette. We don't want that. Oh, polyester? Absolutely not. So I grew up with that because my mom worked with my grandma's little sister, I guess my great aunt. She worked with her at her fashion brand. So my family knows fashion and people don't really know that we know it. And like they're quality snobs. So I grew up around that. And so when I was going to start a business, I always knew that I wanted to start a business. I just never knew what and what. Um, when I was looking at onesies, I mean, Elena would take these long, beautiful naps. She was like such an easy sleeper after she got sleep trained. And I was bored because I was on maternity leave. I couldn't do anything. And I'm like this type A high achiever type person. I was so bored. And I would just spend time like looking at vendors. And I didn't start Alibaba then because I saw it and I was like, that scares me. Like, I don't want that. Like, that, it didn't seem legit to me, even though the law firm I worked with, like, helped them with their IPO. Like, I'm just like, it still scared me. So I didn't do Alibaba. So I worked local vendors. Um, and we did some onesies. I kind of learned the process. I grilled everyone that I called, like on the production process. I was like, how do you produce? And they were explaining it to me. And they would say things like sublimation. And I was like, what's that? And I would Google it. It's like sublimation's on polyester. And I was like, heck no. My mom did not like polyester. We're not doing that. So, like, when we just first got our first samples, it was just onesies that had like gold stars on it. And again, like you said, quality was really important to me because I never wanted my kids' stuff to fall apart in the wash. And a lot of people then were just doing like iron on vinyl, which could
Right.
fall apart. You know those ones. And that's like, a lot of
Yeah.
mom and pops did that. And I was like, I'm not going to sell that. I think I did for like 5 months because I was in between suppliers and I tried it myself. I hated it and I wasn't proud of the quality, but we learn from those small experiences. And then I was constant like, there's always a way to improve. Like for me, the bar just it's like it doesn't exist. Like the bar, like you're just constantly surpassing it. That's kind of how I was always raised, and so I had that with my business early on too. So quality was really important.
And when you were reaching out to these people, is it like soup to nuts, or did you call a designer, or did you like design on some system and then send them the designs and say, okay, shoot me a sample? Like, what does that actually look like tactically? And I'm assuming you pay for these samples, right? Or did they kind
Oh
of
my
send it to you
gosh.
as a pitch?
So back in 2016, it's so much different than it is now. Like now we have like a proper fashion production assistant who does everything, and she is like so invaluable to my business. She's probably the highest paid person on my team because she's worth it. But back then, I did the designs myself on Adobe Illustrator, which I had background in from high school because I did a lot of yearbook design and had all that design background. And our family, again, like we're super creative, so we had that background. So I just designed it myself and then I just called a bunch of places. I was like, how do I put this on here? And there was actually one design that I made, and someone was like, well, that's cut and sew. We don't do that. And I was like, what the hell? What's cut and sew? So I'm like Googling like cut and sew. And I'm like, oh, that's like what you do overseas, garment production. And then our good friend, and I also leaned into our network because our good friend Ramsey Nashef, who ended up designing my first Eve pajamas 2 years later, I called him. I was like, Ramsey, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what is this? And he kind of gave me some tips because he had his clothing business for a while as well. And his was great. And he gave me some advice. And then Mona Shuri, who also had, Mona, she
Yep.
had her jewelry business. She was like one of the first people that had that. And so I actually had lunch with her. And the best advice she gave me was don't underprice yourself. And so, like, that is something that's ingrained in me. But so they helped me with those things. But when it came to the design, like I did it, I don't, I, and I'm always the kind of person that like every year your design should be better. Like you should be embarrassed of designs that you've released in the past. Like I kind of feel like you should be, shows you improving. So those like vintage designs I would never release again. I think they're fun, but I wouldn't do them again. But yeah, no, I just designed it. We had them done. And I literally remember getting my first one and thinking, this is so cool. Like I'm so excited. And literally thinking, this is great. This will be for my daughter's memory book. I never would have imagined that first month, like constantly having to replenish. I made my money back like within the first week, which I couldn't believe that I did. I was like, so I went back to work because I Like, I worked for a law firm, so, like, I knew that I couldn't really start a business and make money while I was on leave, so I didn't actually start like, open my doors until I went back. So I was back at work full
Yeah.
time when my business had opened, and so, like, that was the whole thing too. And so I was literally, like, working and dealing with all these orders and, like, how do we replenish it? Because in the US, you could do things a lot faster. It was, like, 1 or 2 day turnaround time. But yeah, that first supplier, I also learned, like, I'm very picky with who I work with. I think I've probably, like, let go of a lot of suppliers, like, as I've learned more. So I let her go, like, within first 4 months, and then I found another supplier. But it was just crazy to figure all that out. And then I kind of figured out, like, you could do it at scale, and save money at that. And I didn't even know what scale meant. I was like, what does scaling mean? And then I was like, oh, scaling means you produce more and you invest in it. And then you, like, have a lot more product
Mhm.
and your margins are a little bit higher, but your risk is higher too. So it was just very interesting to learn all of that.
Okay, so this next question is a little bit of a big one. It sounds like you were at a law firm. You knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur, so you clearly weren't like in love with that. If you're already thinking about the next thing, you were leaning into your network. What did you learn in your background at the law firm at other places that helped you build your business? Because honestly, I think your journey is probably the dream journey for a lot of people who are like, wait, I don't really love what I do, but I like to work, and there's probably something else out there.
Oh my gosh, that's a great question, and, like, definitely crazy with everything that I have done because I don't think I ever not worked since I was 18. And so, like, I think every single job, and I say this as much as, like, there's a lot of jobs that I didn't love and I didn't love parts of it, but every part of those things has taught me something that helps me be better as an entrepreneur. So when I was 18, I worked very briefly at my uncle's company, and he's a doctor in SoCal and has a big practice. And that taught me a lot about, like, hiring and the type of labor that you can get at various price points, right? That just gave me a lot of insight. And I was just being there and reflecting. I'm like, oh, I picked up things from what he did to grow his business, and I realized, I was like, oh, my uncle was always networking when he had these big iftars. My uncle was always networking when he's at the masjid. My uncle was getting to know people so that they would refer work to him. He was always growing his business. And so I, like, kind of put two and two together with that. And then in college, I worked at Verizon, which you probably, I don't know if you remember that. I worked at Verizon, and that was customer service entirely. But when I did customer service, it was customer service, and I never did sales because I was working part time. But I was always the top accessory salesperson, which I know, like, sounds super lame,
I totally
but, like,
believe that.
right. And so, oh, and I have to tell you, like, my first ever time that I sold something, like, also too, like, it's just so yeah, top accessory salesperson. And my manager told me, he was like, Sidra, it's, like, not like you're even trying. Like, you just, people just buy from you. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm not like a sleazy salesperson. And I actually truly believed in, like, our bundle. Our bundle was like buy two, get one free, right? And at that time, like, this was like 2000, it's like so silly, but I still remember it. But the way I positioned it to the customers was like, oh, like, you probably need a travel charger. Because that's like the number one thing left in a hotel room. And I legitimately thought that they needed an extra charger. Like, it wasn't even like, I was like, you really need this extra charger.
This will make your life easier.
Yes, and then I was like, "And then you need your car charger, and by the way, if you get the car charger, then I'm gonna throw in this phone case for free," which is, again,
Yeah.
buy 2, get 1 free, but the way I positioned it was like, "And I'm gonna throw it in for free," but it wasn't like, so they just believed that I was doing them this favor.
Yeah,
So
that's brilliant.
and I learned that though from, like, when I was younger and I used to just sell, like, candy, like, I don't know if Masjid ever did this, but we did a lot of fundraisers for all the events, I think all the clubs that I was in,
Yeah, all Muslims have
and
fundraised.
right, like everyone has, right? And so with those, and I'm very competitive. I'm always like, I have to be the best and I'd be like the top person. And the way I would sell all the candy bars is like the candy bars were $1 each, but I would just tell everyone they're two for $2. And then you're selling two. And so it would always be number one. Um, and yeah, and then also too, like, it's funny because Mark Cuban said this, like, anyone who's like sold like candy as a child is gonna be like a good entrepreneur. And actually, the first job that first way that I ever made money was, I would always go places and I'd be like Costco, and I'm like, that's so weird. Like, a tube of M&M minis is like, a box is 25, like $20 or whatever. No, it's like $12, but it has 24 in there. At school, they sell it for $1 each. So they're making money off of that. Can I do the same? So literally one time at Costco, I just put a box in my mom's cart. It was so full. She didn't even say no because she didn't see it. But I think, like, reflecting on it, it wasn't like the most honest way to start my first business. But, I put it in the cart, she paid for it, and then I took it to school and knowing M&M minis had just come out, our school hadn't sold them yet. So it was like this exclusive product. And I sold them all. I literally would bring them to school. People like, oh, Sidra has the M&Ms. Like, I'm going to buy it from her. I'm like, it's $1. And I would just out of my backpack be selling candy to my friends. And then the next time I went to Costco, I was like, gel pens are popular. I'm going to buy gel pens. And so I put that in the cart and would just sell gel pens. Like those little Caesars, like gifts that you would get with your pizza, like on sharing day. I wasn't just sharing. I was up there sharing and saying, and by the way, this is $1. And people would buy it from me. So I was always selling. But yeah, so that I think is like, and but that isn't just like, and it was just like, not like I want to make money, but it was like I need to learn. It was like psychology, like how do people buy? How do people respond? Because you're
You
learning about like exclusivity.
you just unlocked a core memory because I was like, "Huh, have I ever sold candy?" Like, I've definitely sold for, like, messages in schools, and I was like, "Hold on a
Yeah.
second." I ran a vending machine operation at my dad's office
Did
between,
you
like, 8 and
really?
11. I
That's
don't know. I
crazy.
have so many unanswered questions. Where did the vending machine come from? But I'd also go to Costco
Yeah.
and like on
Yeah.
the box, it's like not for individual sale. And I'm like, Forget that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ignore that."
Oh.
And literally you unlocked a memory. I completely forgot. It was buried so deep. And then we'd have like a Folgers. He drank Folgers at his office. Like that's what was always there. So we'd grab the Folgers can and I had the key and I'd unlock and I'd grab all the coins and we'd make like good money. Then we'd go and like wrap
Yeah.
them all and give them to my mom, be like, I actually don't remember what happened to the money. I don't know. I hope she gave it.
Yeah.
Maybe she owes me money. But, it's so funny. You literally just unlock this. How do we get our hands on vending machines? I have so many questions. But yeah,
That's so
I agree.
crazy.
It's highly likely that if you were trying to make money off of 8-year-olds as an 8-year-old, you are going to go
Yeah.
into business. So nevertheless,
Yeah.
you are killing it at Verizon, selling accessories. What happens next?
So then recession happened and I like had to work at my uncle's accounting firm for a little bit, which like I hate accounting, but then I learned like again, like now my accountant and I, like, my accountant's always chasing me down to like give her information. And I'm always like, I don't like numbers. But working there, I had to reconcile people's books and I was like, oh, like this is very important. And then I saw that a lot of businesses had like cash flow problems. And so I was always like, oh, that's weird. So things like that, like little nuggets like stuck to me. But then I only worked there for
Like
like
people
six
still
months.
do things when they don't have it figured out. And when they have it figured out, they probably do things better.
Yeah. So all of that happened, right? So it was like little nuggets and it was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I did like tech sales, but then I created my own job in social media marketing at that company. So I did that for a little while and then I moved on to the law firm where I did business development. And I will say like that company was like so hard. I worked at like one of the top 50 law firms in their business development and marketing team. And I did that for 4 years there and then 4 years at another firm. And it was incredible because like what I learned there was like professionalism, how to communicate at a high level because they put me in uncomfortable situations where I had to present to people that were
Mhm.
way smarter than me. Like these are like the top 1% law firm grads is who worked at the firm that I was at. So very intelligent people learned how to be a better writer, learned how to be a really good communicator. And then I also learned, obviously, because I was in business development, how to bring in clients. And that firm, because they were so big, they were focused heavily on retaining clients because repeat business is easier to get than new
Yeah,
business,
you want to
which is
expand versus acquire. It's
exactly,
cheaper and
exactly. And
faster.
you right, and you know this too because you have your own business. It's the best way to go about it is to make sure your current clients are very satisfied with your business and that they're the core of your business. And we did a lot of business development events where it was like nurturing those clients. And so I saw that. And as much as hard as that job was, it was like super difficult. I had a boss who was very difficult to me. And anytime I'm like, I always question myself when I'm with my own team. I'm like, am I acting like her? And I'm like, no, no, I'm not. And so I'm always very cognizant of like, don't act like her. Like as much as she's taught me, like, there's things like that too. And then I worked at another law firm after that, because I went back for maternity leave and it didn't work for me. Went to another firm. And there it was so crazy because like I was growing Jasmine and Marigold at that point. It was like 2016 that I started. Um, got my new job November 2016. My dad died November 2016 as well. Like literally he had his heart attack the day I started my job. And all these things is like it was just like the crazy time for me because at that time it was like I was so good at like numbing everything and so crazy enough like as traumatic as all that was what that did for me was like I just like killed it at the law firm. Like we tripled in numbers by the time I left in terms of our attorneys. We did like all these amazing events. Grew my business like crazy. Was just so determined. So that year we saw a really crazy amount of growth, and it was just like so wild, like what children, like a death and a new job can do for you, like as an individual. So that was just like very, very interesting. But like all that time, because I would think I know actually not talking to my therapist that I was trying to ignore what happened with my dad and I lost him, that I was so focused on growing my business. And so then, when COVID hit was when I was like, oh crap, like I actually, like I'm at like a really boiling point where I need to make a change. And so luckily Jasmine Marigold is big enough where I was able to quit. But it was just like very interesting how like things happen in your life and you just like, I mean, it's wild how like tragedy can just propel you in a different direction. Like either you can sink with it or you just grow past it. And I just kind of took that route. It was very interesting.
There's I think it's referred to as post-traumatic growth. And there's post-traumatic stress. Everybody knows
Oh,
about that. But there's post-traumatic growth. It's like a thing. And I think
oh,
about people. There's like certain people who I know, if you give them a challenge, they will fly. Like I think about my mom.
mm,
My mom thrives with challenges. You give her a problem and she's
hmm,
like eager to solve it. No matter
hmm.
how serious it is. And so I think
Y'all
some
have, you're
personality
like one
types.
of 8 siblings, right?
6,
You're
yeah,
like one
there's
of
6 of
eight.
us, so, I
Okay.
mean, that
Yeah.
alone, no put
Yeah.
all problems aside, birthing that many
Yeah.
children, and she started a
Yeah.
school, and she has she's like
Yeah.
her
Your
doctorate
mom's
degree, and
amazing.
she's a dentist. My mom's crazy, she's out of control, but, like,
Yeah.
she's not scared of anything. It's kinda, like, wild,
Mm,
right? And but
mm,
the point that I'm making is, like, I'm
mm-hmm,
pretty sure she has post-traumatic growth, like, I'm pretty sure that she
mm,
sees challenges and grows from them, and it seems like you share those characteristics too, and so when you
mm,
quit your law firm, it's COVID, people are online
mm-hmm.
shopping more than we'd expected, um was it easy for you to I mean, you quit your job, but you got another job, your kids are at home. So was it easy for
Mm-hmm.
you to kinda double down and just get moving? You had a baby right before COVID, yeah, Mila's
Yeah.
Camila's age,
2018.
so she
Mm-hmm.
was 2 years old then, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it was crazy. That the whole COVID year was crazy for my business because right before COVID happened, so n the August 2019, I'd gone to my first, like, fashion convention because I was like, "These local suppliers are not cutting it for me. They're not able to
Mm,
keep up with my demand. I need to find other suppliers." And so I went to again, Ramsey was like, "This is where you need to go, and you go there," and he was like, I even still have my notebook from there. He was like, "You need to pretend like you know what you're doing because they can smell people that are new." So he like coached me through it. I pretended like I knew what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. But I went there and I spent 2 days there meeting with a bunch of suppliers and learning how to get actual samples like factory made. Because I had my niece who's also in fashion in Pakistan help me with my first pajama run. So I guess, because you know more of my story. So I'm like, for anyone who doesn't know this. So yeah, so while I was at the law firm, I wanted to grow Jasmine and Marigold beyond just like basic onesies because there was this demand. And my audience and we have this communication on Instagram where they're like, we wanted to do family Eid pajamas. We wanted to do more clothing year round. We want to do swaddles. Like everything that I produce is because my customers tell me they want it. And we do polls regularly. Not as much anymore. I think I need to get back at it. But everything that I've created has been a result of my customers telling me what they want. And that's data that I was learning while I worked at the law firm was what do my customers want? But the problem that I had was I didn't know how to produce it because I wasn't ever in fashion. So my niece helped me with my first pajama run in Pakistan. And those are like the first ever Eve pajamas that had a full print at the bottom. Like no one had ever done that. Those are those dark blue ones. Ramsey designed them. They're beautiful.
My baby was
And they
wearing them, like, 5 days ago.
are you
My
serious?
yeah,
So funny.
yeah,
It's probably a hand me down from her older sister.
100%, it's Camila's, yeah.
Yeah. And so that was important to us too, because my niece is in fashion in Pakistan. She grilled the guy on quality. We both grilled him on quality. We are like, quality is really important. Fit was pretty important. Fit we could have done better with. And I knew that. I always knew we were always going to improve. So that was our first run and that was successful. And then in 2020, I was like, I'm going to do another one because now people know who I am. We're going to do different colors. It's going to be amazing. So I went to check out new suppliers. I also knew that 80/20 rule, like what's your best product, but like also you need to make money year round. And I knew as my business, I couldn't have just a business that was focused on Eid and Ramadan because like aside from just Eid and Ramadan, like our identity matters year round. Like we matter year round. And we don't want to think about it just 30 days out of the year. And so that was like the whole reason for going to this show was because I want to find small batch suppliers that could support this for me and like meet them and I met like the most amazing bamboo factory. But it was just by chance. And what was great there was like another entrepreneur. He's amazing. He worked, I don't want to say what company he's with, but like you'll know the company. The company is phenomenal. And they're this huge bamboo pajama company. And he spent a half hour with me just learning from me and like sharing, like with no expectation. He was just sharing with me what he had done. And he was like, this, that time they were at like double digit millions revenue. We were barely at 100,000. I was like, oh, like I can never get to your level. And he was like, no, no, you will. And he's like, you will. And he's like, this is what we do. And we kind of shared some strategies. And because I thought this guy was so like confident and cognizant of everything, and I met him at the same booth where this bamboo supplier was, I was like, there is no way he's choosing a crappy supplier. So they became my supplier going forward for all that stuff. But then when COVID hit, I was still using my cotton Pakistani supplier, who I also found at that convention, and they were great because I wanted to do production in Pakistan because being Pakistani is like very important to me, and I'd always wanted to give back to Pakistan some way. So we produced in Pakistan. And we had this amazing pre-sale. And I remember because we usually pre-sell our pajamas because we have so many sizes. And it was like double what we'd done the year before. And we were so excited. And then in April, no, it was in March. And the supplier actually came to my house, like, because he had been there for the fashion convention in February, was like showing me parts of our product that was in production. The factory shut down
Oh,
and it was awful. It was like right before Ramadan. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh. And at the same time, I had my law firm job, which they had just cut my pay 20% because of the pandemic. So at this 20% pay cut, my Mila wasn't even 2 years. She was 18 months old at that time. My 4 year old at home and my daughter, my older daughter, she has ADHD. Like we didn't know that at that time. Like I have it. I'm not surprised that she has it. And she like very much clings to me. Like she's only not here because she's watching TV. So I had these kids that were just on me while I'm working full time, dealing with this whole thing. I barely slept. It was awful. But again, I had a really good friend who was in PR. She helped me craft emails to all my customers. And so like that again, customer service. You're informing them like, hey, our product is late. You can cancel if you want to. And most people stuck with me until we got our
mm.
product, which literally arrived, I think, the day after Eve. It was crazy. And I was just like, it was awful, but we did it. We got it all. And then by that time, I was just like, I'm so tired of like, like I had this other product, like, my bamboo factory that I was trying out because I knew that was the eco way to go. And that was really important to me to try to do small batches with like good materials. And I loved the bamboo supplier over the Pakistani supplier because they're so professional. So then what really allowed me to quit was that my husband's company was moving to Dallas. And, California is like dual income's kind of required. And so with the business, my income's kind of like all over the place. And so moving to Dallas, there was less pressure on me to have a contribution to our household. And that's what actually allowed me to quit, which was like nice. And so doing that was crazy and that was good.
It's wild because I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the firm moved as a result to COVID, maybe, maybe not, but all these unexpected things happen and kind of you had an opportunity and you jumped on that opportunity. It seems like a lot of the work was also pretty remote because your suppliers probably weren't in LA, or were they?
No, at this point, everyone I worked with was international. I had people because I still did like print on demand shirts. And those suppliers were in Irvine. There was like these really nice Turkish guys. I still love them. He's fantastic. And so we did some shirts with them, but everyone was overseas. But all the factories were closed. And then we had supply issues. I remember like when that shipment was sent to me, like I was so fortunate that I had a real job because that shipment cost like double, almost triple what I expected to pay for the shipment.
Yeah, I remember
So it ate
those
into
days.
profits. So awful. But no, so 2020, we didn't even have a lot of products to like meet the demand of online suppliers because I was still kind of figuring it out. 2021, we did grow 150%, but people grew in 2020 more than 2021. 2021 is a downward trend. So, like, alhamdulillah, I think for us, it was more like this just shows that we were able to meet the demand of our community that wasn't really filled. So that was pretty cool to be able to continue that in 2021 and then 2022. So just to like
And
really go.
and does it look like this? Like, walk me through how it looked and how it looks today, because you mentioned that your business is kind of, to a certain extent, has a lot of automation involved. Was it the case back then
Hmm.
that you, in your garage, had 5 bins and you wrote down Layla Shakely and the address and you tossed it in the mail and now it's changed? Or was it never like that? What did production look like for you as somebody who was new? And what does the end-to-end delivery look like today?
Oh, that's so funny. So I think I was always like way too type A and knew there was always better ways to do everything. So I would never write an address on an envelope. I think people do that, and I knew then like that's stupid. I was like that's a waste of my time because I was like my time is valuable, and I've always like said my time is valuable. We're going to be efficient from like day one, and we're always going to try to improve. So that was, like, always a thing for me. So, like, I just got at that point, like, thermal printers were really expensive,
Mhm.
so I just got I'm actually looking at it, it's, like, my beautiful brother laser printer, and I was like, "That's how we're gonna print our labels because it's, like, super cheap per print." Found out how to get the best labels, and then just found, like, integrations to Shopify and, like, how to print everything, automate that, so it was, like, very easy to pack and ship. My husband's in supply chain, so that's also something that has really helped me because Nick has the master's in supply chain, and like I didn't know what that was when he was getting his master's, but like now everyone knows what it is. And so Nick kind of helped me with a lot of the efficiencies of like packing orders because he and I would do it ourselves. And I actually still to this day hate packing orders. It's like it's not my favorite thing because I think my time can be used elsewhere. But at that time, we were packing orders from our garage, and at that point, so like end to end, as a new business owner was figuring out how to produce garments that actually fit because like I'm super grateful that even with my first run, people weren't complaining about the size and fit because I figured that out and how important that was. Um, Figuring out how to have good quality products so no one was complaining about quality and good customer service, like that trifecta. Because even if you give them like a crappy product, like hopefully I would never give people a crappy product, um, saying to them, like, we're sorry, we made a mistake, let me fix it for you, that's important. So, like, I knew kind of those 3 cornerstones are really important to a business was, like, that was really important. So, I was always very involved with customer communication. And people have given me second chances because, like, you're not always gonna have, there's always an error rate. So that was then, kind of figure out the sizing and all that myself, which was, like, a whole process, but very important when you have a fashion business. And then shipping, so we did a lot of pre-orders, so that was, like, a lot of hype, a lot of email marketing really early on because everyone was like, social media," and I was like, "No." I did email marketing with all the companies I worked with, like, social media, not everyone sees my posts, like, Instagram owns that, email I own, so I leaned into email very heavily early on, which is a big revenue builder for my business. So we did all of our sales through emails, and then for packing and shipping, it was just, like, really easy. We just had an integration on Shopify. It was, like, click and print and ship. It was super easy. And then we would drop all the packages off to the post office. So that was that. Oh, actually, no, that time my postman was like my best friend. He would come to my house and he would just pick up my packages and he was great. So we did that. Today, it's a lot more different. So in terms of like designers, so then I like kind of had Ramsey design for me, who I loved. And then now, do you need me to open that? I'm so sorry. We have a puzzle over here.
No,
Um,
on Muslims doing things, we embrace real life. These are the things we do.
Yours, Mama? It's a happy puzzle. She wants you to know it's a happy
Oh, that's
puzzle.
fantastic.
That's a Gabby one. Oh, it's a Gabby
Oh,
puzzle.
Gabby's
Gabby's
dollhouse.
dollhouse.
Very, very aware. Gabby's pretty cool.
She said she wants me to tell you that she loves that show.
Me too.
Yeah.
Camila does.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Camille and I are like hours
Like,
apart. So
literally hours. We were in labor together.
I know
Yeah,
that's true.
and
We were.
you
Yeah.
know what? Normalize moms doing the most. I will not be editing that out anyhow. So
The always being aware that they're out there. It's so true though, right? Because literally, I don't
hashtag.
think I could have my business without them. There's no way. You have to have purpose with everything. And so for me too, like there was like a really like I think like a 4 month period of my business where actually 2021 where my growth was so high that I was like, why am I not happy? And then I was like, I need to put the purpose back into it. So like I really took some time to put the purpose back into it, which is good. But okay, so yeah, so then it was like having some designers design for me, had some like customer service help. I would like hire contractors to help me with certain things every now and then. Like if there was like a spreadsheet, I wouldn't do that. Like there's a lot of data stuff. Like I just don't do that kind of stuff. Like I have people that do it for me because I think that makes sense. Like 80/20 rule, like where is your time spent the best? And so now for Fit, my production assistant in New York, she works for children's fashion. She's phenomenal. She's a contractor. She and I work together and we just are like, I mean, she creates these like beautiful packets they're called tech packs. I didn't even know these things existed. And that's what she puts together for me. And then I have a bunch of designers that I like to work with. Some are contractors that are overseas. Some are like girls in Pakistan who are like the sole earners for their family. And then we're giving them money. And it's like amazing to be able to support them in that way. Um, and then in 2019, I had this amazing Australian designer. She did the Evil Eye, she did Jamila, she did Arabic. She did like my top three bestsellers. She was phenomenal, and she was a mom too, which is great. So it's like we kind of like hired intentionally, invested a lot of money into those key areas, which is like design and fit. And then when it comes to like production, it's like a whole thing now. Like it's crazy. Like we get samples. So I'm constantly getting samples and I'm looking at them, I'm improving them. We got all these samples, the fit samples, my kids, we make sure it fits on them. We just, compare it to mainstream stuff. Um, there's a lot of regulations with children's sleepwear too, which again, like, cause I worked at a law firm, I was like, what are these yellow tags? Like, what does that mean? But this is not just, you don't just put a yellow tag on there. There's regulations. So we like learned all of that too. And when I say we, I really mean me. And then like confirming it with my production assistant. And she was like, yeah, these are the specs. And so now when orders come in, well, we did outsource to a warehouse that would fulfill all of our orders for us. And I'm in between warehouses right now, but that was great because the orders would like come in on Shopify and then someone else would like pack it and ship it for me, which was amazing.
Does that take a
Yeah.
bunch of the revenue, or is the cut reasonable? Like, at what scale does it make
No.
sense to go to a warehouse?
Okay, so that's actually really funny that you asked that because now that I've become a lot more intimate with my P&L and looking at all that, because my accountant loves to talk to me, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll talk to you and I'll look at my stuff because numbers kind of scare me. I'm like, I make money. I'm like, there's money in the account, but then now that last year I attended a mastermind and I was like, well, I really need to grow, and I was like, well, what takes a lot of my money? And so for that, like that was a really big expense. There's a lot of things that are big expenses, and I actually think one of the biggest problems when you are a small business owner is that you run into people that will like just take advantage of your naivete. And so like, early on I hired an ad agency, and it was funny because Mona also works at an ad agency. And I remember telling her about them and like my revenue is great. And she was like, but like, what's your profit margin? Like, are you breaking even? I was like, oh, that's a good question. Like, I didn't really consider that. I was like, I'm just making money, but am I like making money? So that was that. And you really have to look at all that too. And that's why it's like so important to have a good accountant. So with my 3PL, like as phenomenal as they were, there were a lot of things that were, I've worked with now too. Again, like I'm the kind of person where if I don't like something, I'm going to switch it. And I think that's important as a business owner is like you do need to make those kind of decisions. So the second one, like the cost was just crazy. It didn't make any sense. And so we cut ties and we're going to try, again, my husband's a supply chain guy. So he wants to start his own warehouse and help me with the fulfillment.
Mm.
So we're kind of in between that right now.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
many people don't realize that most things you see on the shelves come one of two ways. Either the company owns the trucks and make sure they get there, or there's a third party that fulfills and
Hmm.
delivers. And like there are actually
Hmm.
even companies like, big beverage companies, for example, who will do both half and half. And it's because this last mile, like the margins are razor thin, but
Hmm.
it's expensive. It's expensive and expectations are high, right? So
Yeah.
so like you're that last mile is, that whoever it is that's actually getting that package to the door, and the person who's fulfilling that is the representation of your brand, right? When there's
A
a tear
hundred
in the
percent.
package or it's put in a funny place, like this represents you, even though you have no clue who these people are often if you're working
Mhm.
with a third party. So it's an interesting choice and it's interesting to navigate, but it's also very cool to see, it did go as I anticipated and suspected, from like bins in your garage to
Yeah.
professionals whose day
Yeah.
job it is.
Yeah. And now to like our own warehouse that we're fulfilling out of. And so we're
That'd
like
be
back
super
at that.
cool. Well,
Well,
also it's
that's what
cool
we're
because
doing right now.
so
We
your
we
husband
literally just
technically is sort I mean, I don't know, I'm gonna your husband has technically kind of started his dream. Is that a fair statement?
I don't know if it's his dream. I don't know. I feel like I'd be kind of maybe his
Next
dream has
step.
always been for me. Yeah, his this is his thing, right? Because he sees like the flexibility. I think for him, he sees the flexibility I now have as like my own boss, and he's like, I want that too. And he's really
He's
good
like,
at
"What am I
this.
doing wrong?"
Yeah, so he's like, "You're my guinea pig." So he like we're still in the process of like setting all the systems up because that takes it's only been actually right now it's been exactly a month. No, 25 days. We're 25 days into our own warehouse and we're still figuring out the kinks of all of that. But like he's knowledgeable and he knows how to do it. I've done shipping before. We figured it out. And like already I've saved thousands of dollars this month. So I'm like kicking myself. I'm like, doesn't make any sense. So it all depends though too. It's not even like your scale that you're at. I think it's that, is your warehouse willing to work with you to make sure? Because mine had like these weird, like, I guess I was paying more than other clients, because, and I kind of found out. And I was like, that's weird. But then there was no willingness to like work with me. And like would have been fair is like if my, typically a lot of warehouses, if you have like a shelf space, so it's really important as a business owner, like just educate yourself on how people do it. Like your shelf, like it varies month to month, but I was always charged like my maximum, and it never like
Oh.
your yes. So that was a big business expense, like as
It
you know.
wasn't
So
dynamic based on like, "Okay, I
mhm,
have low inventory this month." They're like, "No, we're holding it, and even if somebody else uses it, you're paying for the whole space."
yeah, exactly. So I would go regularly, and I'm like, these shelves are empty. Like I don't need them clearly, and like I can tell you my lead time, they're not going to be filled for 3 months. So
Why
like,
am I paying
why am
for
I paying
this?
for it? Yeah. So I think like business owners need to get really
Mhm.
intimate with their P&L. As much as I like hate talking to my accountant, I do look at it and I have to, and that's been really good for me, is getting like kind of more of that handle, because when you grow so much and you have a lot of people that you work, that you hire, and that you outsource things to, that can get a little out of control, which we definitely ran into that problem. I was like, how do I,
Yeah.
like, what do I do? So but
Have
now I'm able to put that in inventory, which is great.
It's really cool to hear the story because I think often people lead with a social media story, which is also a good story, right? How did I grow the
Hmm.
business by letting people know? And you're like, hold on, no, here are the nuts and bolts behind, here's the foundation I
Hmm.
built the house on. On the social media
Hmm.
side,
Hmm.
what was your approach there? Or were you just, do you have like a strategic targeted approach, or do you just post what you have and people like it as you
Oh
get
my God.
tagged?
So what's funny is that what trends and what does really well is when I talk about my husband and my kids, and because people just love hearing about that. But I don't love sharing that as much, because I'm like,
Hmm.
yes, that's a big part of my story, but I just feel like Nazar, I'm just like, I don't really want to.
Yeah. You're
Um,
still a mom with personal preferences outside of your business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, but early on, just like, because I'd be sitting in my office at work and I'd have some time between calls, and I just kind of be sharing, like, oh, like I'm at work. I'm like pumping at work now. And like, this is my pump. And I'm on a phone call and I'm pumping and I'm doing this. And I would take time to like be on my stories often. So for me, I think my customers will probably say this. And I actually believe this too. I love my customers. I don't know how I got so lucky with this amazing community of people. We have this VIP group now, and it's like I can tell you, like every all 200 of those women that are in there, like I know their kids' ages, like I know what
Hmm.
state they live in, like I just know about them, because I truly like it's like so cheesy to say this, but like for me, it's like maybe I won't meet them in this lifetime, but if I meet them like in Jannah, like that'd be so cool. Like that's kind of, it's just like kind of fun, like to know these are like people that like you just want to, like it's just so cool to have like these amazing hardcore fans. But with the social media strategy was always just like kind of showing up. I never knew what to post on my feed, because I think with us, like the influencer moms are trending now. The influencer Muslim moms are, they're
Hmm.
here now. They weren't here 7 years
No,
ago. No,
it's
I couldn't
newer.
find them.
Yeah, they
Yes.
were all random, mostly white chicks, honestly, who wore like neutrals and,
Mhm.
beachy hair.
Yeah. Yeah, and there weren't any Muslim moms, and so I didn't
You're
have
you're
people to do
so
content.
right. I've never taken a
Mhm.
step back to think about it. Muslim
Mhm.
influencer moms are a thing.
Yeah.
That
Now
was
they're a
not
thing.
you. This blew my mind. This literally
Mhm.
just blew my mind.
Right? Can you, like, it was back then was only Irene, who you and I both love, and Irene
Yeah.
did help me a lot with my business, and she was phenomenal. So Irene like posted about me, but she was the only one. Little Life of Mine, who I also really like. But I remember asking him, I literally remember asking my story once because I had really high engagement. And I was like, who are Muslim mom influencers? And they were just like, Irene and Little Life of Mine, like no one else
Yeah.
existed. And you're just like, okay, but now they do, which is
They're all
nice.
over, especially even on TikTok, and it's Muslim families too, not just moms. Like it's all over.
Hmm. Yeah. And actually it's funny because my a lot of people say they grew with influencers. Um, I think because my business came up with a lot of influencers also coming up, a lot of them would actually buy from me. So they were growing
Yeah.
their audience while I was growing mine. So it's like a mutual, like I feel like with me, like I'm kind of lucky in that they've already just like bought me. They don't expect me to gift them. And
Yeah.
so I'm kind of lucky in that way. Some of them I've gifted, obviously, because I will, but we've never really had to gift. And I really don't like doing influencer stuff. I just don't like it. I don't
Well,
think there's
it's
a
kind of a
like.
wild west of a market, to be super frank, as
Yes.
somebody who's, like, on the other side. First of
Mhm.
all, the rates can be atrocious or free, and if you
Mhm.
suggest free and they want atrocious, they'll cancel you for it. And if you
Mhm.
suggest atrocious, but they would take it for free, you got the math wrong. And then on
Yeah.
top of it, like, when you do gift, there's no guarantee that people will even post things, and if they do
Yeah.
post it, it could just be this, like, "Thanks," as one of, like, 60 unboxing posts. It's kinda just the Wild West. And then, like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
rates are astronomical, but do you really get the brand value out of thousands of dollars, for example, from somebody with, like, a 30,000 person following? And I've seen those rates, right? So it's just
Mm.
it's definitely a different world.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine as like a brand, you kind of have to be thoughtful about, okay, how do we engage in this way and, make it a part of our story.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as the person who handled the marketing budget at law firms, which didn't like to spend money on marketing in this way, like I'm pretty cheap when it comes to that. And I've actually never had to pay an influencer because a lot of times they see my stuff because again, we're
You're
kind
like,
of
I'll take
niche.
it. Yeah.
They just want it because they want it for their pictures. So most of the time they just want it and I'll give it to them for free and then they'll usually post it because nothing like this exists, or if it exists, it's like poor quality and they know quality and they're not going to post poor quality.
You
But
you
I'm
know,
happy to pay people if I want to. But I mean, right now
yeah,
I'm
it's
trying to
not like
focus
a
on
principal thing.
UGC because ads do pretty well for me. So I do UGC. So I'm looking for UGC
Yeah, that's
creators
all
because
that's
I
all the
really
new
like
rage.
UGC creators.
They're all
Hmm.
over TikTok, but it's funny. Camila has
Yeah.
a lovey. She's had a lovey since she was born. Actually, I love my lovey story because it started with Bella hijabs, which I'm wearing now, which is
Yeah.
also a Muslim-owned brand. They're just like very
Yeah.
soft. Your bamboo is very similar in feeling. So Camila would nurse and she'd
Oh,
grab my
really?
hijab. So
Ah.
to the extent that she would sleep with my hijabs, and I was like, "Hey, this is unsafe." And I've had some lovey somebody gave me as like a baby shower gift. It was bamboo. And she lost that and
Ah.
she lost the next 6 of them. And then one day, you sent the Arabic letters and the evil eye.
Yeah.
And the Arabic letters one, I think that product is supposed to be white. Ours is definitely like a deep brown at this point, no matter how much we wash it. The edges are like ruffled, like she sleeps with it. We've
Oh.
actually unalived it on a few occasions, but she finds it. So like
Oh my god.
we like because she sucks her thumb as an affiliation with it. So we keep like
Yeah.
we it's
Oh.
actually pretty cool though, because she's like, these are Arabic. This is Arabic. She probably spends 14 hours of her day with that thing in some capacity, whether she's asleep or it's in the
So
car next to her.
amazing.
So it's like it's pretty cool to see actually. And she's
Oh,
like,
it's
yeah, these are my Arabic
amazing.
letters. Yeah, it's really neat. And I think also my newborn pics, I like put your products in my newborn pics, not because I was doing you a
Yeah.
favor by any stretch of the imagination. I was like, these are incredible for Isa when I was stuck in my home
Thank
taking my
you.
own newborn pics. That's what the story was.
I remember
Yeah.
seeing those too. Yeah, and I think for like that's just like amazing to me. Like I just love it, and I think it's just like incredible. Like I would love to. Like there's some influencers that are on my list that I want to pay, but I'm also just like when I look at the return, it doesn't always make sense for our small business. But I would love to get to the point because there are some that have like supported me for free, and I'm just like I would love to pay you, but we just don't always have the budget. And ads have been pretty positive return. Word of mouth for us has been a really good return. So I kind of take it different ways. So I invest in like really good photo shoots. And funny, okay, so what's like so in disbelief, and I'm kind of totally ignoring this because I think I do this to myself a lot, and I know I do because my therapist tells me I do this to myself, is like the not celebrating how cool it is that it's not just my kids that get this representation, but it's like ever like all these other kids. And
Yeah.
just like it's just beyond me that that is, like, something that we're able to do, and, like, it's just so cool when I hear it. It's just I'm in disbelief when I hear it.
Yeah.
I love it, and it keeps me
Yeah.
going.
I have to
It's
say,
like you have to
I'm
have that
really
purpose.
impressed by our generation. I feel like we have a lot of it figured out, and it's the stuff that we just never really had growing up.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's really cool. And Sidra, for people who want to follow the Jasmine and Marigold journey, for people who want to purchase the product, where would you direct them?
Yeah, so they can go to jasmineandmarigold.com. They can follow us on Instagram at Jasmine and Marigold. And we are now releasing stuff every 2 months, like new prints. Like we actually probably like every month or so. We're trying to do drops every month of like new stuff because there's demand and everything is like Eastern inspired, um, drawn by small artists that are amazing. A lot of them have cool stories. I don't always share the artist stories that I need to. And they can find us there.
What's next before I let you go?
Oh, oh my gosh. So right now, I'm like trying to get over my imposter syndrome. Like, there's a lot of people like approach me and like, we want to like, I know I need to cut that out. I'm like really bad. It's like so bad. But like for right now, it's like the keeping up with demand is the problem. And so like I'm trying to seek out more investment for the brand because we're profitable, like, but we just can't keep up with demand. Like, I sold out of our Eid pajamas this year, like 3 days into Ramadan, which should not have happened. Like, it was just like, but we ordered more, and I was like, how do we sell out? It's been a problem. So that is like next for us. Now that I'm like, because again, like that anchor of like hearing that your child is recognizing her mom's tongue on an item that she has, and that gives her pride. Like that is what anchors me in wanting to grow the business more is like having these kids be so proud and normalizing it for them. So just like regular drops of like new items that people can wear, be proud of. Keep the quality the same, but just like that continued growth is like super important to me. It's just like the representation is like really, really key. Um,
Yeah.
I'll end on like one like interesting nugget is like this year Elena, like, at the end of Ramadan, was just kinda watching me, like, really busy because half of our products were in our house and half of them at the warehouse because the warehouse wouldn't accept my new shipment during Ramadan because they were too busy. So I was fulfilling some stuff during Ramadan, and Elena goes, "Mom, like, is this your busy time of year?" And I said, "Yeah, it is," right? And I'm just like, "Okay," like, she's, like, asking about my business, and I'm like, "Yeah, it is my busy time of year." She goes, "Oh, so, like, but then you have like your products, like what, like, she was like asking me about my business. And it was like, the question she had asked me was like, how did you come up with this idea? And like, what is this? And I was like, oh my God, like this kid has grown up with this representation her entire life. She doesn't know that this didn't exist. Like, she didn't grow up with the time where you couldn't get this stuff.
She doesn't
And
think
it
you're a
was like,
pioneer, she thinks you're just another,
she
businesswoman.
thought, yes, she
You're
thought
like, "It
that
exists
too.
because
And
of you!"
I know, and I'm trying to explain this to her, right? Like, this is, like, all because of you, but it just, like, blowed my mind because like, these kids don't know what it was like to grow up with, like, nothing, like, to not have anything.
You know, the flip side of that story too, which is something you're probably not recognizing but are leading to, which is awesome. Children, whether girls or boys, research shows that people who have a direct line of sight to like a female entrepreneur have like
Mhm.
I forgot what the times like I don't know how many times more likelihood of becoming entrepreneurs themselves. There was a study
Oh,
out
it's
of
amazing.
MIT that Sandy Pentland did, yeah, and he was like looking at people who became the different factors that might contribute to somebody taking an entrepreneurial route and kind of,
Huh.
leading to their own outcome. So you have increased the likelihood that your daughters will follow suit. And with that, we
Alhamdulillah.
will let you get back to
That's
them.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was so fun. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thanks, Sidra.
Alright.